So yes, that's me, Felicity Bairstow. Oh no, I'm not there yet. I'm here now. And next slide, please, Carl. So I wish to acknowledge that I'm making this presentation on the land of WA people, and together we continue to care for the country. Now, I'm going to be a bit daggy and read this part of the presentation because the only time I've ever seriously messed up the presentation was here. And I had a complete brain freeze, and I don't want to do that today, that's embarrassing. So I'll just read it. It's a story, so I can read it. So last year we reached a major milestone in the ongoing battle to protect and conserve the wetlands of the Swan Coastal Plain when the Beeliar Bill passed in WA State Parliament. And the Roe'd Reserve was removed from the Metropolitan Region Scheme, a result that was over 30 years in the making. This presentation will touch on some of the strategies that went into that 30-year campaign and go some way to counter the perception that saving and protecting our precious natural areas is primarily achieved by lying in front of bulldozers and other acts of terrorism, which is good because I'm not very heroic myself. So while non-violent direct action, which is the tech term for lying in front of bulldozers, can have a place in the process, it is the thousands of hours of work that takes place prior to and around any on-ground action that will make or break a campaign. The campaign that stopped the construction of Roe'd is a good example. I think it would be fair to say that the campaign originally grew from the campaign to stop Bairstow, which while in itself didn't reach its desired outcome, it did spawn and activate a movement that 36 years on is still constantly working for the protection of amazing wetlands. That's the Wetlands Conservation Society, by the way. Membership forms are over here. Take one as you go out. I don't know if I'm enough, but you know, I'll get more because I'm just sure I'm going to be, I should say I might be the secretary of that group, but anyway. So it's a little bit tricky to condense a 30-year campaign into 30 minutes. So I'll give a quick overview of the campaign, and then I'll focus on some of the tactics and strategies that took place over those years. And better still, how we can all apply these techniques right now in our pursuit of bird protection and care for our wetlands. For many years, the campaign consisted of a lot of discussion between us wetlanders and main roads and various politicians. And the main substance of these discussions was, from part of main roads and lots of politicians, that Roe'd was absolutely necessary. And we would say, no, we can't build it there. And that was a recurring theme for quite a while. There was lots of report writing. Safe North Lake Group was very instrumental in this work, along with the Wetlands Conservation Society and other local groups. In fact, the Safe North Lake website still exists, and there's some amazing reports and so on archived on that from the early days of the campaign. So this is what I like to call the Dalai Lama mosquito tactic. So it's, if you don't believe one person can make a difference, or in this case a few people, you can never try to stay with a mosquito in your bedroom. I think that's great for wetlands people. So through this process of irritation came the EPA report in 2003, concluding that any proposal for the construction of the alignment of Roe'd Stage 8 through the Beeliar Regional Park would be extremely difficult to be made environmentally acceptable. Breathe sigh of relief. Then we also went on to work with the government to do the freight network review, which involved industry, government and community, and from that we developed a 6-point plan for freight movements in the southern suburbs, basically anything except for Roe'd. but a little bit more suffer than that at the time. And then back in 2008, we became agonisingly close to having Roe'd deleted off the Metropolitan Region Scheme. So much so that I went to the Conservation Council and said, "Aren't we wonderful? I can walk past Rose Swamp now and it's all safe." And then the next morning, Alan Carpenter called an election. And then we got a different government, and then suddenly Roe'd was back in our face again. So we thought a few mosquitoes can be irritating. A whole swarm could be quite annoying. So we got all our different groups together and we formed, say, Beeliar Wetlands. So this is when we got stuck into the serious community campaigning. And right from the start, we were lucky with who the people came to the party, and that was how it was all the way along. So at our first meeting, we had a guy who was a recently retired graphic artist, and it's got me anyway. And then before long we had bumper stickers. And they were actually paid for. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that they were paid for by Circle, it might have been anyway. So basically that started suddenly coming together. So we had bumper stickers and a style guide to keep us going through the rest of the campaign. So for the next 9 years, we worked our way through many more meetings, more reports, hundreds of community events and stalls. And I've avoided naming too many people in this presentation. I would just like to say that Rexeter's youth carried more than its fair share of display boards and marquees over the course of the campaign than possibly anybody else, any other person's youth. So that was a lot of physical labour over many years, going around just making ourselves known in the community. So we always maintain focus on alternatives and solutions, as Tom just kindly said before the break. And we pull more rabbits out of hats than have nibbled on the reed edge of the North Lake Reserve. We can joke there, could be better now, that used to be a very bad problem, North Lake Reserve. So much so that at one stage we stopped doing reed edge in there because it was too mowed down by the rabbits. Anyway. So with no stone unturned, several legal actions were also pursued. Again, when the Perth Freight Link was announced, we branched out yet again, and the Link Alliance was formed. So then we were taking in very unusual bedfellows, like, well, unions might not be, what does Roe want? What do you want, Roe? He's trying to sneak in. You right?
So I'm just checking, everything's all full.
Yeah. So we had bringing the unions coming on board, and I'm loath to say this, I even tweaked a bit of a old boy network, and the president of the pastoralists, I can't say that word, and Graziers Association at that time happened to be a friend of my brother's from uni, and we got him on board as well to come and talk at one of our meetings, and how the solutions that we're putting forward were quite practical. So there was the legal actions, and always ongoing political negotiations, and campaigns were even running for state parliament to highlight the issue. And then in late 2016, in an act of sheer spite, the bulldozers came in, but the community came out. Then the amazing benefits of the WA Wetlands Centre are suddenly there for all to see. Not only was it the base of the campaign activities, we realised we had a ready-made population of people, especially young people, who knew their wetlands were important and were strongly connected to them. Once you've knitted off the old boardwalk, you're a wetlander for life. There's no negotiation about that. So we had a place, we had people, and we had this amazing coming together of the community. That's what a lot of people think of as the Roe'd campaign. There was a lot that happened before that, but what happened at the end was amazing and important. So then overnight, out of the dust kicked up from the bulldozers, came the first step to a victory with the change of government and the announcement to stop the construction of Roe'd. I have to say that one eventuality we hadn't thought of over all this, for me 25, some people 30 years, was that we'd stopped the process halfway through. So suddenly we were left with this scar running through the wetlands. So then we did what was probably, and probably still is for some people, unthinkable, and 19 days after the election, we sat down in a room with the new government and people from main roads, and we worked together to begin the restoration of that, I'm going to cry now, of the area that had been damaged. In that 19 days, it's hard to explain now, but by that time we were so pumped, was probably the best word. So when the election result came out, 19 days later, we had a complete report, a plan on how we wanted the area restored, prepared to present to the government. I have no idea how that happened. But a bit of adrenaline, I think.
And how much, what was the area that was destroyed? How much we're talking?
17 hectares is not the right, yeah, that's the actual bit that was cleared. Someone can correct me if that's not right, that's just the number that pops into my head. The actual road reserve's quite a bit larger than that, but they really just went down the middle of it in most of the places.
Chief Felicity, I thought they cleared out the whole corridor because it looked like, at least when you're driving up some of the crossroads,
some of it was,
it looked like the whole thing had been cleared out all the way as a ribbon.
yeah, oh no, so it was the whole length. In the wetlands, they didn't clear much.
Oh, right, yeah.
And yeah, no, it probably was mostly cleared, yeah, but anyway. Oh no, that thing's happened and I just didn't want it to happen. Lost something. Yeah, oh, clicky please. So this is just a little diversion. I was going to leave this one out, but Marie Taylor was talking about her dad, so I thought I'd do this. So this is where I met my first activist. And this is, yeah, activists are ordinary people. So that's one of my message for today is that we can all be activists in our own way. First activist I met was a farmer, finished school at the age of 12 and went on to fix planes in the RWF, not a fighter pilot or anyone famous or remarkable. That was my dad. And I'll just tell the story. So I was born in the good old days when having a birth plan meant making sure there was a tin of baked beans in the cupboard. So Dad could feed the other kids while Mum was dropped off at the hospital to do the hard baby. Yeah. So my first contact with my dad was through the fly-wire door of the WA hospital. But that's that. But yeah, ordinary people. Dad went on what he had already, and so he was responsible for along with other people, because none of these things happen with one person, for the Current Rock Reserve, which is now used for the Wildflower Society. They do a lot of work out there. And also Lake Dumbia, getting I've lost the word, stopping the cars going through the bush. Controlled access, that's it. Yes. That's good, and go to the next slide, please. So, something I need to portray or get over who the real activists are. Because the media and obviously opposition, or whoever they might be at the time, are very fond of portraying activists as nasty, feral people. Nice way to put it. At the moment, activists conjure up all sweat and angst. I recently heard someone on Radio National call activists agents of chaos. Like, cool, we've never heard that called that before. Oh, I'll put that on my resume. But the truth is, a lot of activists are really ordinary folk, going about their ordinary lives, but with a little voice inside of them that wants to make a difference in the world, to make the planet a better place, whether it's for nature or refugees or ancient rock art. So I like to say, if you're not an activist, then you must be an inactivist. I, for one, do not want to be an inactivist. Next, please. So the first thing, or one of the first things I think is important about getting in touch with your inner activist is understanding your why. I think you're more likely to persist and keep striving for your outcome, a good outcome, if you really have a deep understanding of why you're doing it. So, here I point out, a good outcome is not always your ideal outcome. It's not always the outcome you set out to achieve. The first environmental campaign I did, I was aiming, and I was very naive and thought I was going to do this, to save 7.9 hectares of beautiful, pristine bank shield woodland. We saved 0.8 hectares, but we also had created a community that was primed and ready to then step up and stop a road going through a wetland. So that wasn't the outcome I was looking for, but it was a good outcome. So for me, this works about the future. Obviously, a lot of us have a really deep connection with nature, plants and animals and fungi and all the other living creatures, because I always get in trouble if I don't say everything apart from plants and animals. And I can be recently found roaming around looking for stylidiums, and I am a bit obsessively attracted by little creepy crawly things, much to some of my family's horror, because my house is a bit of a arachnid ecosystem, I call it. Just nice ones. But in my heart, I want to make sure that my kids and grandkids are able to appreciate this amazing nature that we've been able to enjoy. So back a few years ago now, it was the first climate strike, and I went to a workshop where we were all making our banners, and I was going to write a banner that said, intergenerational equity, it's a thing. I thought, that's not going to fit on the banner. And it's not very user-friendly language either. So, for our grandkids, that's nothing. And we'll go next, please, Carl. Oh, okay. Fuzzy picture of a tree with 2 pointy front mounts hiding in there. This photo was taken by my dad in our backyard. seem to remember you used to put a ladder up and take the photos. Yeah, more Cookham actually, yeah. So, being involved with biodiversity. So it's occurred to me that a lot of us in the environmental movement are a bit like tawny frogmouths. I know we hide away in our trees until we're threatened, at which time we go, is that what I know? Headed up the ladder, and there's a nest. My dad didn't swear very often, he did that time. And then we burst out and become aggressive. So, this is what I'm going to
Determined rather than aggressive.
yeah. I don't know, yeah. Yeah, there's something that's related to be aggressive if someone's threatening you, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I have this little theory that we should be more like ravens. Ravens are everywhere. They are in your face. You can hear them if you're lying in bed. You can see them as you walk down the street. They're very intelligent. They make great use of tools. And not everyone likes ravens, but that's okay. No, you don't have to be liked to be doing the right thing. So while I'll always be a tawny frogmouth deep down, I've learned to put on my raven suit and be bold for biodiversity. So am I asking you to move out of your comfort zone? Yep, I am. Because you know what makes me really uncomfortable? Exciting. The thought that my kids and grandkids aren't going to have the same experience of nature that we've had. And this isn't just some existential worry of mine. I told you about the Tara Rock Reserve. The reason my dad was involved in the conservation of the Tara Rock Reserve is there was no fowl there. And he used to take me out. Tara Rock Reserve is only a couple of miles from our farm. He used to take me out and we used to watch the male fowl and the nests, their amazing nests and how they cared for them. And in the last time I checked, this was a couple of years ago, and we tried to look again with the Wildlife Society. Oh, I guess it is too, because having that funding year again happening here. So we don't think there is any male fowl in the Tara Rock Reserve anymore. Got to go back this spring and try and another look. And that's just incredibly sad. So I can't take my kids and grandkids, I've got two of them now, and they can't see the same things that I saw when I was a little kid. So that's what makes me uncomfortable. So if I had to put on my raven suit and go out and make a good goose of myself in front of a bunch of people, then I'm going to do that because it's that important. I can't read, tears in my eyes. Oh, next page. Oh, next slide, please. So now we're getting on to what we should be doing. So I stole this from the good health card to find these days. I stole this from the American Black Rights Movement, and I think it's great because it's so true. So many decisions are made at a government level with no input of community or environmental matters because there's no one at the table to put those thoughts forward. So this is, I mean, you know, just one good example, I was looking at you there, Michael, of somewhere where this works quite well, where being at the table, is the regional parks community advisory committees. That's in that situation we have local government, state government, community, everyone all in the room, you know, half a dozen times a year, maybe it's more than now that anyway, a few times a year to discuss what's going on in our regional parks. And that feels like a proper consultation and a proper input from the community. But all too often that doesn't happen. So groups like the Cons Council of New BC have to be very proactive and put in the case of the government that conservation groups do need to be represented wherever possible on various bodies. I mean, the stuff Hans is talking about is a classic. You know, if you don't understand the hydrology of an area or the hydrology of the area down the hill or next door, you can really stuff things up if you haven't got an appropriate person on that committee or that decision-making body. So, while those big groups need to be pushing for that, we as individuals also need to take every opportunity we can to participate in any sort of processes that come our way. I know it can be a bit onerous, but I think the thing is not to get, it doesn't have to be a long submission. If you make a submission, just have your point. Don't be afraid to be a bit emotional. So, this is a very recent piece of information, but hey, the fact that the Wiggles can be number one in the hottest 100 chart just goes to show you what a strategic public input can do. That was amazing. So, the other thing is to bring the conservation conversation, let's say that, into your everyday life. Wear clothes with frogs on them. Don't usually review my clothes for an audience. And talk about what you do with your friends. Here's Robin. Robin Pickering. Do it late. Sorry, Bridget. 3 or 4 minutes. Really? Oh, no. Right, so, I'm just going to do this one because it's one of my bad things. So a little hit on wetland conversations. Apparently owning a conversation with a complete stranger at a posh dinner party with, did you know dragonfly larvae breathe through their belts? Not necessarily acceptable at the beginning of the night. I will be waiting until they serve the dessert wine for that. Right, quick, plain speaking. Don't use scientific jargon and big words when you're trying to speak to the public. Early on, I learnt aimed at the average 12-year-old, which seems a little alarming, but it's probably accurate. Also, be positive in what you're saying. People want to be inspired, not depressed. And believe it or not, there is often a less pressing way to put pretty much anything. Bulldozers are anyway. Okay. So this is basically about turning the story around. So we did this in the campaign basically when we started talking about the freight network review. So instead of talking about building a road, we said, well, if we don't actually build a road, what we want to do is get the freight from the east of Perth to the port. Or, but still, move the port to somewhere else. So we did all that. And so that's sort of a reframing. It's the whole thing about, you know, don't think of pink elephants. So as soon as someone says that to you, you're like, oh, pink elephants, what else is there to think of? So you give them something else to think of. The other thing is providing solutions and alternatives. So that's one of the solutions was move trucks off the roads onto rail freight, improve the flow of traffic along Ledge Highway. We ended up with a 6-point plan, worked with the government and industry on how to improve getting the freight across. So that's the sort of thing we did, and then eventually, another great alternative was, which when I look back, it's like, did we really try to do that? We tried to divert, we were on the Road 7 advisory committee, we tried to divert Road 7. So it went down the train line instead of going, aiming at railway. We didn't manage that, but it was quite cheeky and imaginative. So that was the thing about, yeah, providing solutions and alternatives. They're hard to counter when you say, but you can do it like this. Yeah, Catherine's up.
They're wanting us to recommend, look at that, and then like,
I did this last night. Right, neuromarketing, that's about, sorry, next slide. That's about understanding how we take messages into our brains. Brains aren't just there's stuff happening in there. Do it wrong and you won't get your message through. Anger is a good way to shut down the neural pathways. Humour's a good way to open it up and get people engaged and taking information. Next. You might have seen a few of these around a few years ago. So the psychology of this is that people want to be part of a group, part of a community. That's an evolutionary thing, it's safer to be in a group. So basically these work by saying, you put this outside Joe's house, his mate Fred walks past, Fred says, oh, Joe's a pretty good bloke, maybe he's onto something there. That's it. You put another supporter. And it's actually backed up by research, and Carmen Lawrence actually did some research on that. Okay, next please. Addressing beliefs and values. Again, this was a good one. So it's really about we get told that everything's about money, but in fact, we're often just working to be in line with our beliefs and our values, which we want to go with.
Yeah.